Object-Oriented Software Engineering, Unit 1, Lesson 5. Today we are going to see about the system life cycle. Any system life cycle always begins with analysis, and especially the software engineering begins with a phase called as analysis. Analysis begins when the sales department sends a requirement specification to the system development, or when it sends a specification of desired changes. This is called delta requirement specifications. Normally, the software engineering starts with analysis of all the requirements. All the requirements taken from the customer are brought onto a software requirement specification document, and the analysis as well as the execution, implementation, everything will go according to the requirement specification. But no doubt, all the requirements stated by the user are not the same. So as the time changes, the requirements also may change according to the user's perception. So therefore, as and how the implementation keeps going on, the change or the desired changes are being accommodated inside the software engineering module. So some story with how the changes are made to the system, how the changes are analyzed, and how the delta requirement specifications are made has been shown inside this module. Analysis begins when the sales department sends a requirement specification to the system development, or when it sends a specification of desired changes. This is what we call it as delta requirement specification. If you look into this, there is a first version of the software that has been created, which we call it as first development cycle. And after version 1 is created, it may go to the version 2, which we have it in the second development cycle. So on it goes, taking in version 3, version 4, so on up to version n, until the changes are nullified. So when it goes version by version, a slight modification of requirements are being made, and those changes in the delta requirement specification are being implemented in the next upcoming version. So in analytics, the delta requirement specification is the starting point from which to develop a delta analysis model. The delta analysis model is then delivered for constitution, at which point delta implementation is produced. Each new version of the system is then a delta new version. So system development is then a process of progressive change. It is not sufficient to describe the system from the designer's perspective. It must also be described for other parts of the enterprise that will use it. So it is vital that the system development enterprise should employ an appropriate approach to handle successive versions of the software. To achieve commercial rationalist, it is essential to limit the number of versions of a system by using a technique which allows the system to be configured in different ways. The number of change requirements will increase, leading to the need for strict planning of new releases. So thereby we have two types of analysis which can be done in incremental development as well as prototyping development. So coming to the first one, in the incremental development, requirement specification is followed by analysis, construction, and testing of the complete system. This works when all the requirements of the final system are known from the outset, which is rarely possible. Knowledge of the system grows progressively as work progresses. In most cases, it is better to develop the system step by step, beginning with few of its core functions, and as the understanding of the system gets more clear and better, new functionality is added and the system is incrementally enlarged until the desired level is reached. Such an incremental strategy provides faster feedback during the development practice. So looking into this, the first development cycle has given us only version 1, whereas in incremental stages, we call it as no more as a cycle, but they are called as stages. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, so on until it finishes some set of stages. It is called as version 1. And again, some more incremental stages, we have version 2. So here, each new stage extends the system with new functionality up to the finished product, which comprises the whole of the desired system. It is essential to define stages which do not necessitate changing results of earlier stages as the later stages are introduced. Each stage is developed as a cycle and is tested before the stage is completed. So in prototyping model, a prototype highlights certain properties of the intended system, disregarding the other parts. It focuses on the properties which need more insight. A prototype allows developers to experiment with a number of different design options, thus serving as a complement to the incremental system development. A specific advantage of prototype is that it can serve as means of communication between the developer and the customer. A prototype developed in an environment where an acceptable functioning and easily modified system can be quickly created is called rapid prototyping. Prototyping is a useful technique for comprehending an application. Aim of prototyping is not to create a product, but to emphasize and demonstrate certain properties of the intended system. So thereby we can conclude that prototyping gives out a particular emphasis on a particular property of the intended system. Whereas in incremental modeling, we do it by different versions of it, creating different versions of it, wherein each version of it will have a particular increment, a particular modification of the software over the existing software. So these two kinds of methods can be used for the system life cycle